The waves crash against the jagged rocks. A veil of mist hangs heavy in the air. This is Name Island, a desolate rock jutting out of the wild Atlantic. Miles from shore, it is a place ruled by the sea and the wind. Few dare to venture here, and even fewer choose to stay. The island is a lonely sentinel, a place of harsh beauty and unforgiving nature. The only sounds are the cries of seabirds and the relentless pounding of the waves. But there is something else here, something unseen. It is here on this desolate rock that our story begins. Atop the highest point of the island stands a solitary figure. The lighthouse, tall and imposing, a beacon against the darkness. Its beam, a lifeline for sailors, cutting through the fog and warning them of the treacherous rocks below. Built to withstand the fury of the sea, the lighthouse is a testament to human resilience. But even its strong walls cannot keep out the fear that creeps in with the fog. Inside, 3 keepers tend to its light. They are the only inhabitants of this lonely outpost, their lives governed by the rhythm of the sea and the turning of the light. The islanders speak of the lighthouse in hushed tones, their stories passed down through generations, each tale more unsettling than the last. They say the island is cursed. Fishermen tell of strange lights seen in the fog, unexplained sounds carried on the wind. The lighthouse keepers, hardened by the sea, dismiss these stories as superstition. But even they cannot ignore the feeling of unease that permeates the island, for they are the keepers of more than just the light. They are the keepers of the island's secrets. Thomas Griffith, the head keeper, was a man forged by the sea. Weather-beaten and stoic, his face bore the lines of a life spent battling the elements. His eyes, though, held a depth that spoke of long nights spent contemplating the mysteries of the vast ocean. Years at sea had taught him the importance of discipline and routine. He ran the lighthouse with an iron hand, demanding the same unwavering dedication from his men as he did from himself. The safety of sailors, he believed, depended on their vigilance. He was the keeper of the light, and in his heart, he felt the weight of that responsibility with every flicker of the flame. James MacArthur, the assistant keeper, was a man of few words but unwavering loyalty. Solidly built and dependable, he was Griffith's right hand, carrying out his duties with quiet efficiency. He had spent his life on the island, fishing with his father as a boy, and knew its moods as well as he knew his own. He had seen storms rage and subside, watched the seasons turn, felt the isolation seep into his bones. But the sea was in his blood, and the lighthouse a constant in his ever-changing world. He found comfort in its rhythm, the steady rotation of the beam, the familiar tasks that marked the passing of time. He respected Griffith's authority, understanding the burden the head keeper carried. He was the Steadfast Second, the silent guardian of the light. William Marks, the youngest of the 3, was new to the island and the life of a lighthouse keeper. Fresh-faced and eager, he had jumped at the chance to escape the crowded city and find adventure on the open sea. He saw the lighthouse as a symbol of romance, a chance to prove himself. He hung on Griffith's every word, eager to learn the ways of the sea and the secrets of the lighthouse. He threw himself into his tasks, scrubbing floors, polishing brass, and assisting with the lamp. But the isolation, the endless expanse of sea and sky began to weigh on him. He missed the laughter of his family, the warmth of a crowded pub, the comforting bustle of life ashore. He dismissed strange occurrences as tricks of his imagination, but a seed of unease had been planted. The 3 men, thrown together by fate, formed a fragile ecosystem within the confines of the lighthouse. Their lives were governed by the routines of their work, the changing tides, and the ever-present isolation. They ate together, worked together, shared stories, and sought solace in the shared responsibility of keeping the light. Their personalities, a blend of gruff experience, quiet dependability, and youthful enthusiasm, created a delicate balance. Griffith, the stoic leader, provided direction and purpose. MacArthur, the steady presence, ensured order and continuity. And Marks, the eager apprentice, brought a spark of life and curiosity to their isolated world. But beneath the surface, a tension simmered. The relentless isolation and constant proximity wore at their nerves. Days at the lighthouse were governed by routine. A strict schedule dictated every hour, from the moment they woke to the extinguishing of the last lantern before sleep. The work was arduous, demanding constant vigilance and physical strength. They took turns cleaning the massive lens, polishing the brass fittings until they gleamed, and winding the heavy weights that kept the light rotating through the long, dark hours. Each task, repeated day after day, brought a sense of order to their isolated world. The rhythm of the sea dictated their lives. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the ritual of lighting the lamp began. The isolation was a constant companion. Days stretched into weeks, punctuated only by the arrival of supplies or the occasional crackle of the telegraph. The silence, broken only by the wind and the waves, was deafening. Conversations, once lively with news from the mainland or stories of past adventures, dwindled into awkward silences. The men found solace in their work, the physicality of their tasks offering a welcome distraction from the oppressive solitude. They sought refuge in familiar routines, in the repetitive motions of polishing, winding, and cleaning. The isolation, like the fog, seeped into every corner of their minds, amplifying their fears and anxieties. The strain of their isolation began to show. The men, once bound by the camaraderie of shared purpose, found their differences magnified in the close quarters of the lighthouse. Tempers flared over minor disagreements. Old resentments bubbled to the surface. Griffith, his authority challenged by the growing tension, became increasingly controlling. MacArthur, his usual calm demeanor shaken, withdrew further into himself. Marks, young and impressionable, found himself caught between the two older men. The island, it seemed, was stripping away their facades, revealing the raw nerves beneath. As the days grew shorter and the fog closed in, strange occurrences began to plague the lighthouse. Objects moved without explanation. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls. Shadows danced at the edge of their vision. Marks, his youthful imagination heightened by the unsettling events, was the first to voice his concerns. He spoke of strange lights seen through the fog, of footsteps heard on the stairs when he knew himself to be alone. Griffith, a man of science and reason, dismissed his claims as the ramblings of a troubled mind, but even he couldn't ignore the mounting evidence of something amiss. The men, their nerves frayed by the unexplained events, became increasingly suspicious of each other. The lighthouse logbook, usually a mundane record of weather patterns and supplies, became a window into the keeper's unraveling minds. Griffith, normally meticulous in his entries, began to scribble frantic observations. Entries mentioned strange cold drafts within the sealed lantern room, a place where the wind should not penetrate. He wrote of feeling a presence, a watchful entity that observed their every move. MacArthur, a man of few words, now filled pages with rambling accounts of nightmares. He wrote of being pursued by unseen creatures across the desolate landscape. Marks, his youthful fear now a tangible presence, documented every creak of the lighthouse, every unexplained sound, every flicker of movement seen through the fog. The storm brewing within the lighthouse was as fierce as any tempest that raged outside. The men, once bound by duty and routine, now eyed each other with suspicion, their fears fueling a growing paranoia. Griffith, his authority challenged by the unexplained events, clung to the regulations and protocols of the lighthouse service. His commands, once respected, were now met with sullen resistance or open defiance. MacArthur, his usual stoicism shattered by his vivid nightmares and the palpable tension, retreated further into himself. He spoke in hushed tones, his words cryptic and unsettling. Marks, young and vulnerable, was tormented by nightmares and plagued by visions. The darkness seemed to amplify every sound, turning the familiar creaks and groans of the lighthouse into menacing whispers. The wind, howling through the iron latticework of the tower, seemed to carry voices, unintelligible murmurs that sent shivers down their spines. Sleep offered no escape from the growing terror. Nightmares plagued their restless slumber, visions of shadowy figures and unseen eyes watching them from the swirling fog. They woke in cold sweats, their hearts pounding, the echoes of their nightmares lingering in the stillness of the night. They huddled together in the flickering lamplight of the common room, seeking solace in shared fear. The lighthouse, once a beacon of hope, a symbol of safety and guidance, became a prison of their own making. One morning, after a harrowing night, Marks noticed a glimmer of hope. While cleaning, he saw a ship approaching the island. Excitement and trepidation filled him. Could this be their salvation? He raced to inform Griffith and MacArthur. Griffith studied the ship, hope and skepticism in his eyes. But as it neared, unease grew. The ship's design was unfamiliar, its movements unsettling. What if this ship heralded a new wave of terror? The ship emerged from the fog like a phantom, its silhouette distorted by the mist. It moved with an unsettling grace, its sails full despite the lack of wind. The keepers watched from the lantern room, their faces illuminated by the ethereal glow of the lighthouse beam. Griffith, his weathered hand gripping his spyglass, tracked the ship's progress with a growing unease. It was a vessel unlike any he had seen before, its hull painted a deep, unsettling black, its sails marked with symbols that sent shivers down his spine. MacArthur, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination, muttered about ancient legends whispered by the islanders, tales of ghost ships that sailed the fog, their crews lost souls forever bound to the sea. His words, usually spoken with a quiet wisdom, now dripped with a chilling certainty. Marks, his youthful curiosity battling with a primal fear, strained to make out details of the ship through the swirling mist. He imagined skeletal figures manning the yards, their empty sockets gazing back at him with an unnerving intensity. His blood ran cold, his breath catching in his throat. The ship drifted closer, its silence amplifying the sense of unease that gripped the keepers. No sound of creaking timbers or flapping sails reached their ears, only the mournful cry of gulls and the relentless pounding of the waves against the rocks below. Griffith, his voice tight with apprehension, attempted to hail the vessel, but his words were swallowed by the fog. He raised and lowered the signal flags, their bright colors a stark contrast to the ship's ominous silhouette, but there was no response. MacArthur, his gaze fixed on the ship, shook his head slowly. "She's not answering," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "It's as if she's listening." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken dread. Marks, his fear giving way to a strange curiosity, watched as the ship drifted closer, its hull seeming to absorb the light of the lighthouse beam. He could have sworn he saw a flicker of movement on deck, a shadow shifting just beyond the reach of the fog. His heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing. As the sun began its descent, casting long, eerie shadows across the churning sea, Griffith ordered the logbook brought to the lantern room. He would record the events of this day, he declared, for the benefit of those who might follow in their footsteps. His voice, usually firm and reassuring, now shook with a barely suppressed terror. His hand trembled as he wrote, the words flowing onto the page in a frantic scrawl. He described the ship in detail, its unnatural silence, its unsettling movements, the strange symbols that marked its sails. He wrote of the growing fear that gripped him, the sense of being watched, of being hunted. MacArthur, his face pale and drawn, peered over Griffith's shoulder, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. He muttered about ancient curses and whispered warnings, his words barely audible above the roar of the wind outside. Marks, his eyes darting between the logbook and the ship still lurking in the fog, felt a chill run down his spine. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that something was terribly wrong. The ship, he was convinced, was not merely lost, it was something far more sinister. Days later, a supply ship, its arrival overdue, finally reached the island. The crew, greeted by an eerie silence, found the lighthouse abandoned, its door ajar, the lantern still burning brightly, casting a lonely beam across the fog-shrouded sea. A search party, dispatched to investigate, found the logbook lying open on the floor of the lantern room. Its final entries, written in a hand made jagged by fear, told a tale of growing terror, of a mysterious ship, and of 3 men who had vanished without a trace. The island, shrouded in fog and legend, offered no clues to the keeper's fate. Their beds lay undisturbed, their personal effects untouched. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist, swallowed whole by the island's eerie embrace. The news of the keeper's disappearance sent shockwaves through the coastal communities. Fishermen, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and sympathy, spoke in hushed tones of the island's dark reputation, of the whispers in the wind, of the things unseen that lurked in the fog. The mystery of the vanished lighthouse keepers became a haunting tale, passed down through generations. Theories abounded, from rogue waves to ghost ships, but the truth, like the missing keepers, remained elusive. The island, its secrets closely guarded by the fog and the waves, offered no answers. The lighthouse stood as a silent sentinel, a chilling reminder of the mysteries beneath the waves. The disappearance of Thomas Griffith, James MacArthur, and William Marks remains an unsolved mystery to this day. The investigation, hampered by the remoteness of the island and the lack of concrete evidence, yielded more questions than answers. The case, officially closed after months of fruitless searching, left a void filled by speculation and folklore. Some theories focused on the practical, exploring the possibility of a rogue wave, a sudden storm, or even an accident within the confines of the lighthouse itself. The sea, after all, was a harsh mistress, capable of swallowing men and their stories without a trace. Others delved into the realm of human error or foul play. Could there have been a struggle, a fight that went too far? Had the isolation, the relentless pressure, driven one of the keepers to madness? Or had they fallen victim to pirates, modern-day buccaneers drawn to the isolated outpost? And then there were the whispers, the tales woven by the islanders, passed down through generations. Stories of ghost ships, of vengeful spirits, of ancient curses that clung to the island like the fog itself. Tales dismissed by some as superstition, yet embraced by others who knew the sea's capacity for both beauty and brutality. The disappearance of the lighthouse keepers cast a long shadow over the island. The lighthouse, once a symbol of hope, became a haunting reminder of life's fragility. The island retreated into the mist, its secrets guarded by the wind and waves. Fishermen now avoided the island, their tales of strange lights whispered in taverns. The island, once a source of livelihood, became a place to be avoided, its name spoken with a mixture of respect and fear. The families of the missing keepers found solace in memories. They clung to hope that the sea might relinquish its hold. but the island remained silent, its secrets buried in fog and legend. The lighthouse stood as a lonely sentinel, a testament to the unknown. Today, the lighthouse stands as a testament to the enduring mystery. Automated and unmanned, its beam still sweeps across the waves, a silent guardian of the treacherous coastline. But the stories of the vanished keepers linger, whispered on the wind, carried on the tide. Visitors report a palpable sense of unease, a feeling of being watched. They speak of strange noises, cold spots, and fleeting shadows. Some claim to hear faint music, a mournful melody from the lighthouse. The logbook, filled with frantic handwriting, is a window into the final days of the keepers. It serves as a reminder of the power of isolation and the allure of the unknown. The disappearance of the keepers continues to fascinate and haunt us. It stands as a reminder of the sea's power and the mysteries beneath its surface.